لایف هم بخیر درست شد، از این مشکل خلاص شدیم. شما میتونین که برنامه را شروع کنین. با 9 دقیقه تاخیر خانم یک چند ثانیه صبر کنین که لایف ببینیم که درست است.
قرار است تحمیل جان داشته باشیم با خود؟
نمیدونم کدام تحمیل جان است.
نه تحمیل جان است
بله بله بله.
تا فعلا که تشریف نآوردن، درست؟
شاید بیان، شاید نبیان.
اوکی.
امید جان شما برنامه را میبینین؟ لایف هست در فیسبوک؟
لایف معلوم میشه در زوم.
بله دکتر صاحب درست است.
بسیار خوب. آقای آریان شما صدایتون را بکشین که من شما را کوست بسازم.
من هستم دکتر صاحب، هستم.
از خانم همام،
بله
وقت شماست. برنامه لایف.
Salam Muhammad. Good afternoon. Shall I say hello, ladies and gentlemen? Just before I start, could you please switch off your mics so that it does not interrupt and everyone can hear us all? I'd like to welcome you all, our dear guests. We have got with us now Aryana, John, and Sayeed. We have got Alison, Miriam with us, and we have Anne, if you can hear us, hopefully, and we have got Khانم, Naid, Farid. We will come to each one of you as we introduce you as before you start your talking, but just before that, I'd like to say a few things in order, shall we say housekeeping or Zoom keeping in here. As I said, please make sure that your mics are switched off until our control room gets the whole entire control. And also this program runs live currently on Facebook, so feel free to share those with Dr. Boris's Facebook, which is AISS Facebook page. And please share that again with colleagues and friends who probably are interested to watch. Also, this program will be broadcasted live on Hasti TV, which is based in London, Radio Nauruz in Herat, and Kawar TV Kabul, in Kabul, and Radio Shabnam in Kunduz, Pamir TV, Radio Banwan, and Darakhshan in TV, if I'm saying it right, and also Radio Mahe now in Takhar province. I would like to thank Dr. Boris for organizing this. So the title of this program at the event today is Peace Talk, and also the rights of women in Afghanistan. And also we'd like to hear from each one of you, your views on that. So once again, I would thank Dr. Boris for organizing this, and thank you all the guests for coming and accepting our request. So I'm going to say a few words about the reasons, and then of course welcome our first guest speaker. So today's program following the news on the peace talks between the Taliban and Afghanistan and the role of women in Afghanistan. The reason for holding this event is mainly to have your views and your positions, and of course activities that you have been doing and would like to share with an audience in here, and also whether how active you have been in the process yourselves, and of course, where do you see this in future, especially on the roles of women in Afghanistan. So I'd like to pass on now the mic to our first speaker, who is Shahzad Akbar, and Shahzad John is chairperson for Afghanistan's Independent Human Rights Commission. Shahzad John, if you're ready, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. I'm very honored and delighted to be speaking to all of you and be part of this really interesting and important and timely discussion. I want to speak very briefly about women's meaningful participation in the peace process, and then a little bit about the women's rights agenda and peace process, and then make some quick recommendations. I think when we are talking about the peace process in Afghanistan, the first issue that we need to improve is women's participation in the process, meaningful participation in the process. As everyone knows, we have 4 women in Afghanistan's negotiating team out of 21. That's insufficient representation at the level of the negotiating team. We also don't have sufficient representation of women at the architecture of the peace process on the side of the Republic, meaning that we need more women in the High Reconciliation Council, as well as Ministry of Peace. Of course, as everyone understands, there are no women on Taliban's negotiating team, which is very worrying. In addition to having women be present in the architecture of the peace process, be part of this architecture and have meaningful representation there at all levels, we do need to make sure that we have ongoing consultations with women across Afghanistan to make sure that the peace process really represents the voices and concerns of women. When we talk about representation, often the burden of representation is put directly on the shoulders of the 4 women in the negotiating team. This is not at all fair. Government has a duty to consult women in different parts of the country and should make the resources available for wide consultations with the public, particularly with women on all aspects of the negotiations. Taliban sometimes claim that women who are activists in civil society are representing in the negotiating team or the peace architecture of the Republic are not fully representative of all Afghan women. They also have the duty to consult women on the peace process. The burden of consultation should not be just on women's rights activists and women's rights organizations. The burden really falls on 2 parties to widely consult the public, particularly women, on all aspects of the peace process. Additionally, there is this problematic mindset that women are only there to speak about women's rights. This is not true. Women have expertise and insight on a wide range of issues, and anything relevant to Afghanistan's peace process is relevant to women, and it's relevant to women. There are women experts and thinkers and activists in on a variety of fields. So any issue that's being discussed around the negotiating table, actively women's views should be sought on these issues, from the political structure to issues around reintegration, economy, the constitution, of course. So women are there to speak about human rights, about democracy, about a wide range of concerns that impacts all citizens of Afghanistan, not just about women's rights. It's also important to clarify that women's presence in the negotiating team is insufficient, even if it's increased, for the important discussion on women's rights. The discussion on women's rights as one of the key topics where there's a lot of disagreement between the 2 sides requires input from a wide range of actors beyond the negotiating tables. So both negotiating parties should agree to mechanisms where experts, activists, religious scholars can come and speak to both negotiating teams about women's rights from different perspectives when there's a discussion about women's rights and future of women in Afghanistan. So the consultation about women's rights and seeking input about women's rights and future of Afghanistan should go beyond the negotiating table and the discussion of the 2 negotiating teams. I want to make some recommendations about the next steps. What can we do? What can we all do to improve women's participation in the peace process and to ensure that women's rights agenda is well represented and defended and promoted in the process? In order to make sure that both women's participation is improved and that women's rights agenda is better protected, we need to put pressure on both sides to ensure that not only they consider greater participation of women as direct representatives, but also commit to consulting Afghan men and women across Afghanistan about the peace process. Greater transparency around the process and greater access for civil society, for media, will also ensure that important issues like women's rights and human rights in general are discussed in more depth and are brought to attention of both negotiating sides. Additionally, both sides should proactively devise mechanisms to engage a greater civil society, including Afghan diaspora, in discussions about the peace process and on women's rights and future of women's rights in Afghanistan. I'll stop there, and I'm happy to take questions later.
Thank you very much, Shahrzad John. It was great having your input, and I think we will, if time allowed later in the program, we'll definitely go and get a few questions from our audience. So it's great to know that, you know, given the update to, of course, to audience about that, and let's have maybe more input from our colleague now in here. We have with us, and forgive me if I'm not pronouncing the names very well, but I'll try my best. We have with us Bailey Ann McTaggart of Glasgow City Council. Bailey was formerly member of Scottish Parliament, Shadow Minister for Culture, International Development and Democracy. So Bailey, if you can hear us, we'll pass this over to yourself.
Hello there, and good afternoon, and thank you so much for your kind welcome, and thank you for allowing me to be here. Yes, our huge contribution to the peace process, no matter where you are, but especially within Afghanistan, and how do we take that forward? Women, as you well believe, I was just reading something this morning that kind of stipulates that, yes, we do have a certain type of skill that is so much different from what men have, and we have to celebrate that in a sense. We do have a separate skill base than what men do, so we do have something different to bring to the table, and it is a sad day whenever we are not introduced to the table or even invited to the table, because we do have so much to offer. We do have the unique qualities, of course, to bring forward in any. So we do have something different to bring to the table, and it is. Sorry, are we okay?
All good, Bailey, carry on, please.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
So it really was just to highlight all that has been said so far. Yeah, we are part of every society, and yes, we should be part of the negotiation of trying to bring societies together and trying to bring communities and families together. So we should be part of that negotiating about peace processes, about any process, about how to make the world go around, because we are that huge, we are that other half, so to speak. So we do have loads to contribute. We are not there to go against our different sex of males. We are all at the table together to look for compromise, to look forward to a better place for our societies, for our children to grow up in, to live in. So it's all for the will and the peace of everyone, not just for women, in a sense that we want to be around that table. But it's just about trying to get that invite.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Bailey, for your input. And you're, yes, absolutely right that when it comes to women's rights, there's no one neglects our male counterparts in there, and we would like to be working hand in hand and together towards a peaceful, not just Afghanistan, but a peaceful world, because after all, Afghanistan is located at the center of Asia, and I think peace process have been said before that in Afghanistan will prove peace worldwide. So thank you so much for your speech in there. And if there's anything else you'd like to say, we'd pass on the mic to yourself. If not, we'll move on to our next guest speaker.
I will still stay within today's event and hopefully have some more input later on from conversations. Thank you.
Brilliant. It's my pleasure. We'll now on move to our lovely Aryana Sayeed. For those of you who are new on this group, Aryana is one of our superstars, not just in Afghanistan, but now recognized globally. She has been awarded multiple times. I think it will be best if it comes from Aryana Jan herself. She is every teen's, shall I say, middle-aged or adult's favorite. And her songs have reached into our ears via social media, TV, and I think I personally have it all the time, Aryana Jan, when I drive. So it's wonderful, and my children love it. So we're really proud to have you here, Aryana Jan. Aryana Jan is not just a songwriter or singer or artist, she's also the voice of thousands of women out there in Afghanistan. And Aryana, I must say that she has played a very big role in Afghanistan, in women's lives, and all for very many good reasons and all for positive. Aryana Jan, I'm going to pass mic over to yourself. Thank you. Your mic, Aryana Jan, your mic is mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Perfect, perfect. I'm so sorry. First of all, thank you so much for all the kind words. You are such a sweetheart. God bless you. I'm so happy to be a part of this discussion today. It's a pleasure and honor for me, actually, to be a part of such a prestigious group of strong and accomplished women in this group. And right off the bat, I have to make a little confession and say that for me, being on the stage in front of thousands of people is probably much easier and less intimidating compared to being in a formal discussion with such experts such as yourselves. So may God be with me today. But anyway, personally, I walked into the position of being a woman and a human rights activist as a result of my artistic work dedicated or related to the rights and the position of Afghan women within the society in Afghanistan. And I guess for a few years now, I have tried to use my platform to empower Afghan women and to get them to believe in themselves. And I guess today's discussion is a continuation of that for me. But anyway, enough about me. I'm gonna just get right to my points now. Okay, so first of all, for the past little while, I have been having a complete different perspective when it comes to the present and the future of women in Afghanistan. 10 years ago, maybe I would have been a lot more concerned and doubtful than I am today. As much as we need to focus on not losing the gains and the accomplishments of Afghan women over the past 20 years, I believe that not in a million years, these dark-minded individuals and these extremists would be able to suppress and to eliminate the presence and role of women from the society like they did back in 1996 to 2001. Also known as the Taliban era. And I believe that the world has changed today, completely since then. There was no Facebook. Back in those years, there was no Instagram. The reach of television and media was not as powerful as it is today. And right here in this group, these 2 or 3 very strong and beautiful and accomplished women in this group are the very strong examples of why these dark-minded individuals will not be able to yet again bring darkness into the lives of Afghan women. And just, and of course I'm referring to Ms. Nahid and Ms. Sherzad in this group. And just like them, we have thousands of other very strong, independent, educated, self-empowered, and beautiful women in our society in Afghanistan today. And to share a very different perspective, in a weird way, I believe that those dark years of Taliban was a blessing in disguise, and I will tell you why. While in the 50s and 60s and early 70s, the women in Afghanistan were a significant part of the society. And unfortunately, during the war and over the years, especially with the sudden emergence and rule of the Mujahideen, the role and presence of Afghan women started to diminish. And then obviously it came to a climax when Taliban came to power. But then somehow it pretty much later on turned into a women revolution, the result of which we are seeing in the form of all these strong and accomplished women that we have in our society today. And don't get me wrong, I fully understand and I'm fully aware that these accomplishments and the progress that has been made, it has only mostly probably been made in the large cities of Afghanistan. But then again, we have to start somewhere, right? I believe we can start in the center and then expand outwards. My second point is, based on the perspective of general public, and I share the same, Taliban are not being very clear about their position in regards to the role of women in Afghanistan. And they want anything and everything. They keep on referring to anything and everything being in the circle of religion. But the question is, what version of religion are they referring to? Obviously, the version of Islam that they implemented and they enforced upon people back in 1996 to 2001 was obviously the most vicious and the most extreme version of Islam that has never been implemented and forced upon in any other part of the world. I mean, religion is not rocket science, right? It needs to be clear and it needs to be of acceptance of today's modern society. And I believe that there is actually a standard version of Islam out there in the world today. For example, if I bring up a country like Saudi Arabia, in Saudi Arabia, where Islam actually comes from, today women are allowed to work, they're allowed to study, they're allowed to drive, and they're allowed to be a part of the society. They even have female singers and they have entertainment and they have concerts going on. And to add a little bit of humor to our conversation here, where do you think belly dancers come from? Anyways, the main point is that these concerns shared by all the Afghan women and myself, of course, they're real, they are legit, and they're very serious. Taliban need to be 100% clear and precise when it comes to their position in regards to the role of women in the society. And my last and third point is, for me, I have a question here, like what is the guarantee that Taliban will fulfill their promises and their commitments, even if a peace deal is reached? For that reason, I believe that now the role of the international community comes into play. And I hope that the international community does not forget about Afghanistan, especially the women of Afghanistan. And I hope that they have guidelines where the commitments of Taliban can clearly be enforced later on. And lastly, I hope that they make sure that Afghanistan does not yet again become the home of terrorism and the place where Afghan women can be shot in the head openly in front of crowds in the middle of a football stadium. That's all from me. I'm gonna pass on the conversation to you guys now.
Thank you very much, Aryana John. That was a beautiful speech. On the notes of women and Islam, I must add that those who truly follow by this religion and by the book, we know that in the times of Prophet Muhammad, his wife Hazrat Bibi Khadija, and later on Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's grandchildren, when they died, their Bibi Zainab, Hazrat Imam Hussein's sister, played a fundamental role, and they are the reason that we are here and having those discussions today. And they have showed there and then to the world that women do play a big role in the society, and also they can work shoulder to shoulder with their male counterparts. So that is a brilliant touch on that. In terms of your questions earlier, that where is the guarantee whether the Taliban, when they take over, they will bring a long-lasting peace, or they will keep up with your promises? I think we'll leave that question later on to our other speakers. So we have, after Aryana John, we will come back with some questions, so bear with us. So, but until then, I'm going to pass on to Nahijane Farid, who you have got here, and Nahijane is chair of Women Affairs Commission, House of Representatives in Afghanistan Parliament, and I'll pass on to Nahijane to speak more about herself and maybe a short introduction about her recent work on the current events in Afghanistan as well. So it will be great for us to have it hearing from Nahijane herself. I welcome you, Nahijane, once again. So I'm going to pass on to yourself and with the audience to hear you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. There was a bit of an echo. That's hence my delay in the response. So if you could just start speaking again, we'll test it.
Okay, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I also hear lots of echo. I cannot focus.
Can I ask everyone to mute their mics, please, because there's an echo and very unpleasant echo. Thank you.
So can you hear me now? Yes? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you, John.
Okay, thank you so much, Zee, for giving me this opportunity to be part of this discussion. Thank you, Dr. Boris, for having this platform. And first of all, I want to have an introduction.
No, John, you have muted again. Your mic is on mute. Yeah, it's good now.
Okay, thank you, everyone, for giving me the opportunity to talk. And it's a true pleasure for me to be part of this panel. First of all, I wanted to highlight the fact that women agenda in peace talk with Taliban is not just a feminine agenda that is only for women. It doesn't belong to women only. It belongs to everyone, as Shahrzad Jan mentioned earlier. The agenda belongs to every citizen of this country. Women write about the existence and characteristic and the face of the Afghanistan after peace talk. And imagine a country without women role in decision-making position in this geography that wouldn't be acceptable for every citizen of this country. Therefore, every citizen has to defend our achievements, not only women. And the second issue Imagine that we lose the freedom of speech, we lose the freedom of expression and media. Imagine we cannot have access to Facebook and other social platforms. We lose our freedom of holding conferences like this in Afghanistan. In ongoing peace talks, freedom of everyone is under threat. Let's move from a broader. All human beings are held to equal rights in Afghanistan. If peace agreement with Taliban costs the freedom of expression and speech and media, therefore we all must fight together, no matter if we are women, men, young, old, from any generation. The third issue is the issue of Afghanistan itself, that is going through one of its most critical and historical moments. We gave a great sacrifice of our people. Post-Taliban Afghanistan is very different from 1990s and earlier. Despite the shortcomings that we have right now, today's Afghanistan is a democratic republic with many achievements in the field of human rights, women's rights, freedom of expression, minority rights, political and civil participation of all society, and a modern and advanced administrative system that we have. Who can ignore such a society with all these changes? In present Afghanistan, women can study, they can go to university, they can vote, they can work outside of home, they can participate in political and social activities like men. In modern Afghanistan, people represent human rights, constitutional values, and freedom of expression is recognized as the most fundamental right of citizen. Tolerance, mutual acceptance, and freedom of beliefs have a high stature within the current legal system of Afghanistan. This is the new face of Afghanistan in 21st century. No signature, no deal, no agreement can reverse it. Maybe they can reverse it in temporarily era, but in reality, the real Afghanistan is there. No one can ignore the real Afghanistan. You know, the kid that born in 2001 is 19 years old now. The young individual with lots of dream, lots of knowledge, lots of plan for his and her future won't tolerate the suppression and limitation because she or he raised in a completely different situation. The fourth issue that I wanted to mention is that I believe the agreement with the Taliban at the expense of the democratic value and the republic and human rights won't be stable. Outcome of peace with the Taliban shouldn't be a return of the mid-90s that we had in the history of Afghanistan, in a way that the human rights of the people are violated, women are imprisoned in their homes, the free will of people, especially women, in determining their political destiny is ignored, and the expression of the modern and advanced concept of Islam that promotes coexistence and pluralism, right, with all human beings will be suppressed. I think such system won't be stable and sustainable in Afghanistan. I also wanted to echo the issue of help of international community. You know, the fact that the situation requires the United States and its allies to provide long-term sustained financial and technical support to Afghanistan, especially to its security sector. While I hope one day the Afghan security forces will be able to independently defend our values, I think that only after assessing the situation very responsibly, the withdrawal of US and NATO troops become part of a very prosperous and timely plan in Afghanistan. And I'm concerned that the hasty withdrawal of US and NATO forces could contribute to the growth of terrorism in the region and also to the world, leading to another bloody proxy war that we experienced already, taking more victims from Afghan people and leads to destabilize the region and also to the world. I also wanted to challenge Taliban that the kind of Islam that they believe is not just the real one, as already mentioned by Yuzi. No one can ignore the fact that Prophet Muhammad's wife was a businesswoman. No one can ignore the fact that women worked at the dawn of Islam under Prophet Muhammad's ruling. They even participated in war. What kind of interpretation Taliban have? It's that they have no women in their negotiation team. This is completely against the reality in Islam. They had no women in their cabinet under their regime in 90s. This is completely against Islam and Islamic view regarding women. If Taliban believe in true Islam, they must have women in their negotiation team. They must have women as nominated to rule under their ruling, even if they want to become part of the political system in Afghanistan. And also, there is another issue that I wanted to highlight. that Afghan people fully understand that are due to the broad economic and political and military support of international community and the sacrifice of Afghanistan's capable and heroic soldiers that lost their life and also are fighting against terrorism. And they are in forefront of the global fight against terrorism. That's why we do not want to lose all these gains easily, because these are the shared outcomes of and achievements that we have with the international community. We all spent years of tears and blood all together to be what we are right now. It's not just the achievement of Afghan people, it's the achievement of all the countries that helped Afghanistan in the past 2 decades, and therefore they all must maintain and preserve that achievement. The analysis that I have from the situation is also very important. As a woman, I also have a background of international relations. Our international allies may assume that a peace deal with Taliban in any cost may lead the country to another problem. I believe that the political situation in Afghanistan has recently become more complicated. The armed opposition groups are committing more killings, more terror, more suicide, more explosion. They're taking the victims from security forces and civilians, and external intervention is highly under a different situation. Those and other
I do apologize. Just bear with us. I'm sure Naijan will come back to us. It's just because connections in Afghanistan is not as good as where we are here in Europe. So we will give it probably a few seconds for, oops, we've lost Naijan. So I do apologize for that, but I'm sure we'll have her back soon. Yes, we have got Naijan. We lost your voice.
Okay, just I will wrap up, and I will wait for the questions. The last point that I wanted to highlight is that Afghanistan women expect our international allies to closely watch the agendas of the peace process with Taliban and the withdrawal of NATO troops from Afghanistan, because we want international community to ensure and maintain the transparency of the process of peace talk with Taliban. And also, Afghan women are counting on their international friends to have an active role in helping us and protecting Republic, women's rights, freedom of expression, human rights, civil society, and other democratic values at this very important time. Thank you very much. Looking forward to answer any question, if there was any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naijan. That was a great speech, and thank you for sharing your insight with the audience and, of course, with our wider audience all over social media as they are hearing us live at the minute. Naijan, just going back to the issues of the Taliban and, of course, the influence and impact of women. So in terms of, if we go back to the peace talks that started initially between US and Taliban, there were two things that were really not so clear on that peace talk. And one was the concern about surrounding women representatives, and the other was that the peace talk, the most of the agreement was only between US and Taliban, as if the benefits were all for majority to US, opposed to Afghanistan and its people. Has anything changed since then? And following that, we are aware that there were few campaigns by a lot of both women and men activists in Afghanistan. So has there been any change on that, and any improvement that you think that probably will give women hope in future that yes, they will be part of the decision making in future or in present in Afghanistan? Nigel, have you got our voice? Your mic is mute if you can hear me. Hello, Nigel. Can you hear us? Are you with us? I muted my own mic. Nigel, oh God. Well, it shows that Nigel is there. I think it's with the connection that's bad, unfortunately. Until Nigel comes back to us, so I would like to just mention that our next guest speaker would have been Anne Lees, who is Anne is working with the UN, and would have been great to have her input in that. But unfortunately, I think due to an urgent meeting, she had to, she couldn't make it for this one. But I think if Dr. Sabi are with us, will we be expecting Anne at all?
Thank you, Zainab John. Yeah, just she got an urgent meeting. Maybe she is joining us later. We will wait. We still have few speakers. We will wait for her. Hopefully she's coming. If not, we will let the other panelists know.
Sure. Okay. So while we have, well, until we have got John back and hopefully Anne at some point, I think it's good to have, well, my question would remain to John. However, I think it would be best to give our audience a chance to have questions. We have got any questions to our guest speakers. We have still got, luckily, Aryana John with us in here. And I'm sure a lot of you would want to have questions there on around the peace talk, and also we have got most of our guest speakers here. Sharzad John still shows to be here, and of course Anne. So please raise your hands. There's a hand icon on Zoom if you have questions, and then we will take questions where time allows.
Excuse me, Zainab.
Yes.
We have Alison from UN Women. She is already here.
Oh.
You forgot to invite her. Just a reminder.
Sorry for that. I do apologize. Oh, sorry, Anne. I do apologize for that. It's too many screens in front of my face right now. So lovely to have you once again, and welcome, Alison. You were just showing us somewhere in the corners of my screens here, so brilliant to have you. So I'm gonna actually pass on the mic to yourself, and please feel free to speak about yourself and your work in Afghanistan for our audience, and also your input on the peace talks and the current, of course, political environment that's happening in Afghanistan. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be on this panel and to hear from the speakers. My name is Alison Davidian, and I'm the Deputy Representative for UN Women here in Afghanistan. And I just have 3 points to make in relation to women's rights in the peace process. A lot of it is echoing what's been said before by the speakers. The first is to say that there are 3 peace and development processes that are happening right now in Afghanistan that are really critical. Yes, there's the peace process, but there's also Afghanistan is developing its development framework for the next 5 years. And next month, there's going to be a pledging conference where the international donor community and the government develop a way forward for Afghanistan's development. So it's really critical that women's rights and gender equality are integrated into all of these processes, not just focusing on the peace process, which is of course critical, but also that we get really strong commitments into these other peace and development processes that are also happening. So that's the first thing, that yes, the peace process is critical, but these other processes are also critical, and we need to be advocating for really strong commitments on women's rights and gender equality in those processes. The second thing I wanted to say is that there's a real opportunity now with the peace process in Afghanistan to make it transformative when it comes to women's rights. Across the world, when you look at peace processes, most of the agreements say nothing or very, very little in relation to women. So there's an opportunity now that this peace process for Afghanistan can be transformative and have women's rights at its core. Over the last couple of months, when I've been going into meetings with the international community, a lot of development partners ask me, what is UN Women's Plan B? What is UN Women's Plan B if the Taliban has partial or full control of the government? What are you going to do? This is a question that shouldn't just be for UN Women. It's a question for everyone. Because the truth is that the outcome of this process is going to have implications for peace, for development, for security, for human rights, for everyone. And the truth is that there is no plan B. There's no plan B for the communities that we serve, for communities across Afghanistan, if there is watered down language in relation to human rights. There's no plan B for Afghan women if there's no language there on women's rights and human rights. So that's important to recognize. When the government agreed to go to the table with the Taliban, it agreed to do so without any preconditions. And they had to do that. There wasn't going to be a way to get the Taliban to the table if there were preconditions beforehand. But it does mean that we're in a situation now where the peace talks have started. And so we need to ask ourselves, well, how do we protect women's rights? How do we protect human rights in a process that has already started? As has been said by other speakers, we have very little information on what the Taliban's views are on women's rights and if they've changed. What we do know and what they have said is that they're happy for women to be in government, but not in leadership positions and not in the judiciary. This sounds a lot like what we've heard before. And it does put the government of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, the negotiating team, the international community, and the UN in a difficult position, because we need to think about what we are willing to stand behind as the outcome of a peace process. What will be the red lines? Finally, in terms of strategies going forward, and this has been mentioned by Chairperson Akbar, there are only 4 women in the negotiating team, 4 out of 21. And there are no women in the Taliban side. There is massive pressure on these 4 women to protect 2 decades worth of rights and even what was achieved before the Taliban came into power. It's too much pressure. And the reality is that if in this peace agreement, women's rights are watered down or negotiated away, it will be these 4 women that are held responsible. There's so much pressure on them. And so what we need to do as the international community, and we're doing a few things. One is to make sure that all of the members of the negotiating team feel responsible for gender equality and women's rights, that we can provide them with the technical support that they need to be able to advocate for gender sensitive provisions when they discuss different topics relevant to the peace process, ceasefires, transitional justice, disarmament, reintegration. All of these processes have gender elements. So we're working to do that. And most importantly, and this has also been raised by our other speakers, is to make sure that there is really strong women's civil society engagement. So UN Women is working with other UN entities and partners to make sure that we're convening platforms for women's civil society to be able to share their priorities and elevate those priorities and make sure that they're being heard and fed right into the negotiating process. So that's all from me. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Alison. Thank you very much for the talk. Alison, as you have been as a representatives of United Nations and of course working on or representing on behalf of women in Afghanistan. So where is United Nations position in this following the concerns surrounding Taliban? And I know you touched on that, but probably will be great for our audience to know that where exactly is United Nations position, and given that you already mentioned the ministerial conference that's ahead of us in November, how will you be representing the Afghans and as Afghan women, and of course and again I say the male counterparts who are supporting this? Where will your position be, and how will you be the voice of those women whose voice are unheard?
So it's a great question. And, you know, the UN doesn't have a formal role in the talks. It's the intra-Afghan talks, which is, as it should be, is critical. But we as the UN are providing technical support to the negotiating teams to make sure that they have the information they need to be able to advocate for gender sensitive provisions and making sure that women's rights are integrated and are being heard and part of the process. But a big part of what UN Women specifically is doing is working with the mission here to make sure that women's civil society is able to input into the negotiations and being able to be heard. That's really critical. Next month, the UN UNAMA, which is the mission here, is also co-hosting this conference, this donor pledging conference with the international community and the government to map out a way forward for Afghanistan's development. Critical to that will be integrating women's rights into that process. So as much as the UN is supporting the peace process, we're also trying to support the government to integrate very strong language on women's rights and gender into the other processes as well. It's a lot of different things, a lot of different processes, a lot of different activities happening to make sure that women's rights and gender equality are forefront.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I am pleased to say we have got Naijan back with us. Naijan, if you can hear me, would you like me to repeat the questions that I said, if I could remember all of it, or would you like to answer if you have heard the question? Hello, Naijan, can you hear us?
Now I can hear you, yes.
Brilliant, good. So I'm going to repeat the question, and the question was going back, I said, to the peace talks, initial peace talks between Taliban and US, where the two major points that were not touched on or covered in those talks, one was the role of women in Afghanistan, and the other was that the peace talks were mainly more in the advantage of the US opposed to Afghanistan. Has, after raising the concerns of women and men in Afghanistan, were there any developments, any improvements in that? And do you think that anything has changed for good?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, yeah, the issue of not touching upon the issue of women's rights and democracy in the peace talks and also peace deal between Taliban and United States raised a lot of concern among women in Afghanistan, and they wanted to do something. So we did something in the parliament. We sent several letters to different organizations and institutions that we thought it might be helpful. One of the organizations that we sent a letter was the US Congress. We highlighted the problems. We asked them to hold hearings with the Department of State and other stakeholders in the United States that are dealing with peace talks with Taliban. And they did that. They raised our concern, and even they told them that they received letters from Afghan women, from Afghan parliament. And that was a huge achievement for us. And also, I think after that, the tone of Mr. Khalilzad has been changed regarding the women issue. If you heard in his previous interview, he mentioned that he won't let Taliban to deal and compromise the issue of women and women's rights in the peace talks. And also, you also mentioned about what we are doing in Afghanistan Parliament Women Commission. You know, we doubled our activities, pushing agendas of women and legislations that we think are very important at this very important time frame. For example, putting mother's name in national IDs, having women to be a women's right to be preserved if they are working in the governmental organizations. We are asking acting ministers to have at least one acting, one deputy minister as a woman, otherwise we don't vote them. We are having different agendas, talking with different ambassadors, raising our concern and concern of our constituency. In Afghanistan Parliament, we also have speeches every day in the free time that we have. You know, that's very important to have women representation at this very important time, not only by women, but also by men and women. So we have it in the Afghanistan Parliament. That's a good news. And another issue that I wanted to mention, as I told you earlier, you know that you said, is there any guarantee? I will say yes, there is a big guarantee. You know, 65% of Afghanistan population are women. Or sorry, 65% of Afghanistan population are young generation. They are at least under 35 years old. That huge population have lots of different dreams, right? They cannot be fit in the mindset of Taliban. Maybe they will fit temporarily, but they won't be part of a long-term plan for suppression and limitation, and even limitation of human rights and freedom of expression and freedom of media. This new generation that is huge are going to be decision makers, not Taliban, not even us. This new generation is going to be the decision maker. As I told you, the young 19 years old boy and girl that we have right now has been born after 2001, after 9/11. The new era of democracy produced a lot of new generation, that new generation has a lot of effort and talent and will be a different generation, and no one can ignore them. They are the guarantee. Our fight is the guarantee. Our togetherness is the guarantee. The togetherness of women and men and the international community and supporters are the guarantee. I receive messages from my friends in the negotiation team every day that they say, raise your voice. This is the time that you have to do it. This is the time that you have to start defending from the right of the constituency that you are in the parliament because of their votes. Okay, so that's what I wanted to mention and highlight. Thank you for raising the question. I hope I could answer it.
Thank you, Naijan. You have very well answered our question. I'd just like to announce that as we were waiting for Anne to join us, unfortunately, she was not able to join us here. So what we will do, I think we will go and take some questions from audience now. So we have got a raised hand by Ali Safi. So if we could unmute Ali Safi, who would like to ask a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi there, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful discussion. My question actually is to Aryana Sayeed. I would like to ask her, is she ready to go to Doha and hold a concert for the Taliban peace negotiators and basically impress them by her beautiful songs, her beautiful performances? Is she ready to do that? Thank you.
Thank you, Okay, Lisa, we'll go over to Aryana John to answer the question.
You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you, Aryana John.
Awesome. I have to say that was a very funny question. Well, I have to say, first of all, you know, I'm ready for anything. I'm ready to do anything for my country, for my people, and for the peace, you know, that we all desire and we've been wanting for many, many years now. And yes, I'm absolutely ready to go to Doha, and if they allow me to go there, and I'm ready to have a face-to-face conversation with them, and I will give them my reasons and I will listen to them. If they give me the chance, why not?
Thank you, Aryana John, for taking the question and answering it in your as always, wonderful way. Can I just, before taking the next question, ask that please make sure your question is in the context of peace talk from our guest speakers. And also, once you have asked your question. Oh, I do apologize. I think I was just talking, yes, with my mic off. I'm going to repeat that. I was thanking Aryana John for answering the question with, as I said, like as always, with her wonderful ways of taking questions and answering them. And before taking the next question, can I ask our audience to please stick with the title of today, which is Peace Talk. And also, once you have ask your questions, please do mute your mics. Thank you. So we're going to take the next question from, who do we have? Abdul Wajid Yaqubi. Can we unmute Abdul Wajid, please? Or Abdul Wajid, sorry for my mispronunciation.
It's okay. My question goes to Ms. Nahid Farid. There is a question, something like there was actually discussion about this. Finding common ground on the rule of Islam is the most decisive task for the peace talk between the government and the Taliban. What do you think about this? The Taliban is deceiving the Afghan government, the Afghan people, and they are talking. They have peace with the American troops and also with the US government, but they don't want peace and they are fighting with the Afghan government, Afghan troops and everything. Is it something like the most deceived task between the peace talk?
Thank you for the question. I'm gonna, Nigel, can you hear us? Have you got your voice, ours?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. You know, at the very beginning, we raised an issue that if Taliban wants to talk about peace, Afghanistan government is the address, not the international community, not United States, not any other government. You know, because Afghan government is legitimately representing the people of Afghanistan. When we are having another stakeholders and players in the region or internationally to talk about the peace in Afghanistan, it won't be stable. So unfortunately, the peace talk right now is the product of whatever they had at the beginning. The fundamental was wrong. Having Afghanistan government as a sidelined part of the negotiation was a mistake from the beginning. Taliban are also at the same time are making another biggest mistake. At the beginning, they told us that they fight with Americans and the international community, and if they withdraw from Afghanistan, they will start talking with Afghanistan government. Now it is vice versa. Now they signed an agreement with United States. They said they won't kill their soldier, but they continue the fight with Afghanistan government, and also they are fighting and killing our soldiers, Afghan soldiers. So the narrative of Taliban has lots of compromise, has lots of paradoxes, and is against any logic of any logical narrative that a group has to have. Okay, what we have to do, standing next to our government, I'm a critic of this government, but at this very important time, I'm with them saying that this government is representing the people. This government has to be the address to be part of the signing any agreement. Also, we have to do another thing, which is very important. We have to support our negotiation team. We shouldn't continue saying that this group is weak, because this group is what we have right now. And we have to support them, we have to give them idea, we have to give them confidence, and let them know that they are representing our values. That's very important at this very important time frame. I hope I could answer your question.
Thank you very much, Naijan. That was a very brilliant question, which I'm sure a lot of audience would have wanted to hear, and you have hopefully you have satisfied our friend in there with answering the questions. I'm going to take the next question from our audience here, Amal Akbari, who has been raising his hand a few times. So Amal John, if you could unmute your mic and feel free to ask your questions from our guest speakers. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the chance. It's very pleasure to see a strong group of women here in a very critical situation where the peace talks are continuously going on in Doha. My question is, the US government already signed a deal with the Taliban where there has two parts, confidential agreement and non-confidential agreement, where both chapter is now hidden somewhere. It's kind of like a secret piece of document which has been signed between two parties and saved between two parties, where exactly women's rights may have already been indicated, where the women's rights position and situation will be if the Taliban integrated into this government, or even if they have their own government. So this piece of paper where the women's right has been indicated somehow is very unclear. So the question here is, they're not ready to present that piece of document to the public, especially to the women, to see what they have agreed, how they have changed from 1970s. And the question is perhaps, and they're arguing that that deal will be exactly to be a base for this negotiation. Otherwise, they will not going any further. Perhaps if in the worst case scenario, if that deal would have been accepted as a main document for this discussion, where no one knows what the women's right will be through that deal. So is there any effort made by Afghan Parliament Women Committee, especially to put any pressure on the Afghan government or to the US government to release a chapter or a few articles exactly where the women's rights has been indicated by the Taliban? Has the women community in the parliament by Naijan Farid and the colleagues from there have put in any pressure on Mr. Khalilzad or the US government or the Afghan government or the colleagues where Fawzi Kufi and other colleagues who have been actively talking there? Have they asked anything exactly if the, or in the worst case scenario, if that will be accepted as a main deal, what will be the scenario? It's to Naijan Farid.
Thank you very much, Akbari Saib. I'm gonna pass on this to Naijan, and also will be great to have an input from Alison, who is at forefronts of Afghanistan, of course, working in between. So it will be great to have an input from Alison here as well. Over to you, Naijan.
Okay, that's also a very good question. First of all, that peace deal that has been signed between United States and Taliban is not going to be the main one that is going to be the one that the government of Afghanistan will be accepted. You know that the peace process is under the influence of United States election in November. That's why the whole agreement between Taliban and United States is about the withdrawal, about the reality of how will be the presence of United States in Afghanistan after peace talks and after signing an agreement with Afghanistan government. And I believe that won't be the one that will be based will be the one that our next government is going to be based on that. But you said that if in the worst case scenario, that would be the one, what will be our effort? If that would be the one, Parliament will be demolished too, because the Constitution will be under question, and 3 branches will be under question. The judiciary and the 2 other branches, the judiciary, the Afghanistan Parliament, and also the executive, all 3 will be under question. So we won't accept that, you know, as I told you, there is a guarantee that we won't accept that, even if they enforce, because in the speech of Mr. Pompeo at the beginning of the peace talk, he said that democracy is a good system, but we won't enforce that. We will tell them that democracy is a good system, and we won't let anyone to enforce that we don't have that democracy system and that republic. So we are here to fight. This is the time that we have to fight. We are asking our people to echo whatever we are saying in defending the republic, in defending the values that we have, and that's a very important part of the peace talk, because they are also hearing us, because they want to see the reaction of people while they are putting different agendas of women and human rights and freedom of expression, freedom of media, freedom of access to information, and other freedoms that has been granted in Afghanistan Constitution.
Thank you, Naijan, and I'm going to pass this now over to Alison for her input on behalf of United Nations.
Thank you very much. It's a great question. So I think what we need to be fighting for, regardless of what has been decided between the US and the Taliban, is to make sure that we have really strong commitments and don't put all of the eggs in the peace process basket. Yes, it's critical, of course, but as mentioned, there are other processes that are happening right now that will inform the future of Afghanistan for the next 2 to 5 years. The development framework, the peace and development framework, and also the mutual accountability framework that will be developed between the international community and the government. It will be critical that whatever happens as a result and an outcome of the peace process, that if the Taliban has partial control or however much control that they have of government, that they're also held accountable for commitments that have been made by the previous government. And that also includes commitments for international norms and standards, for example, Commission on CEDAW, the CEDAW and other human rights standards. So regardless of what has been agreed between the US and the Taliban, there are all these other processes that are also happening and ongoing that are determining the future of Afghanistan and the rights that will be committed to by the government and between the government and the international community. And so that's gonna be critical to protect women's rights going forward.
Thank you, Alison. Thank you for taking the questions and answering them both to Nigel and Alison. Another question from our guest speakers here, Aryana, Sayeed and Nigel, yourselves, and this is mainly to our Afghan representatives on this. How would you, what would be your advice in terms of women from Afghanistan or who are supporting this move in Afghanistan and listening to yourselves globally as of now? What would your advice to be, and how could women as well as men outside Afghanistan help you and help with this process and the issues that people are facing currently in Afghanistan? Could I start with Aryana John this time? Maybe we had a few moments of silence, but then yes, and then we could probably after that to Nahid John and Sharzad. John, I think she has left us because she had an urgent meeting after that, and then probably why not if Alison had her input, but let's start with Aryana John and then Nahid John for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great question because usually I have realized and I have witnessed in our communities that most of our people, they do not take part in such initiatives or issues because they feel like this is only the job of the politicians, right? I want them to know that this is not only about politicians, it's not only about women only, this is about our people nationwide. And anybody and everybody should be able and must take part in such issues that arise, and they should take part to find ways how to sort them out. And what they can do is they can take part, they can raise awareness, they can share their ideas, and just, I guess, raise awareness. That's the first step and the main thing.
Thank you for that, Aryana John. Now, John, over to you. We have just to warn you, we have got 5 more minutes left. So we'll take probably one more questions from our audience here after your responses, and then we'll probably head towards the end of the program. So now, John, over to you for now. Your mic is mute, Nigel. Nigel, could you unmute your mic? Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Now, so I have to start from the beginning?
Please do.
Okay. So that's a very good question. You know, we are at a very critical moment. And the other day, one of our famous politicians invited few women, and he said a very important sentence that I want to quote him. He said that we as men, we lost in war, and if we cannot defend women's rights, we are going to lose in peace too. That was very powerful. That was a very touching moment of my last week official meetings that I had. So everyone is accepting that this is a very important time frame for us. If we can preserve and maintain our value, we can prove to the world and also to the enemies that we are together, strong, and women movement has lots of defenders, and it cannot be the tool of politicians. And many are in Afghanistan right now are thinking like that in the official level, and that's a very good news for me. The women organizations are also very strongly networking these days, holding conferences. They are going to have conferences. Afghanistan Parliament, Women Affairs Commission, and also the Minister of Women Affairs are going to have a joint program, a very big one in a few days. So we are raising the voice, and whatever we want from our audience, inside and outside of the country, is that to echo that. If they think this is about human beings, not only about women.
Thank you very much, Naijan. Such a powerful statement. So let's hope that, yes, with worldwide collaboration, not just between, we're not talking about women, we're going to repeat this again, with all nations who are in favor of peace, that we do not lose in peace. That is very powerful indeed. Thank you. Could I, just before taking the next question, could I also, the question, address that to Her Excellency Anne. Anne, if you can hear us and you're still with us, Anne, from the Scottish Parliament, well, formerly, if you could just share your insight with the question just we addressed earlier. Thank you.
Sorry. I was just busy trying to unmute there. Sorry. Really, yes, you're right. And just like what I had mentioned earlier, it's not about male or female. It is about everyone coming together for to do all that we can to get to gain the best society that we can for everyone. To enable us to do that, we all have to work together and we all have to be around that table. But one of my questions to the panel was, do they see any way forward that in Scotland and the UK, do you see any way that we can assist or support any more than what we do over here? I am aware that in Scotland, well, very much so in Scotland, we have some very good women leaders who hold the fort here, and we are able to work together and try and bring forward to government. But is there any way that you think that we should be assisting, that we can assist you in any shape or form? Please don't hesitate to ask. Please call out, shout out. We are all sisters together. Let us know that if there is anything, just please ask. We have got a huge background of all trying to work together, and I realise that it is about you're at a crucial point just now, and you're at the peace talks, but it is about everyone trying to come together and everyone looking at focusing on that vital point. But if you don't all come around the table, I mean, obviously someone will be losers within that and someone will suffer. And unfortunately that the community will suffer, the country will suffer, and ultimately the world is going to suffer for that. So we don't want that to happen. So if we can assist in doing anything to lever any support of any description to our sisterhood, please do not be afraid to reach out for that.
Thank you very much for that, Bailey. That is such a wonderful offer. And I can assure you that a lot of us, maybe not just in Afghanistan, even here in the UK, probably will benefit from some mentoring and coaching of our Scottish and English supporters and allies in there. However, for the question, I think I'll pass this question also maybe will be great to maybe in a sentence or two hear from both Aryana John and Nahid John in here and their responses with Anne's fantastic and very generous offer as always. Maybe Aryana John, to yourself first.
Well, I just want to thank dear Anne for her big heart, for her kindness and her offer, and the care and love that she has for the Afghan people and especially the Afghan women. We appreciate it. We are happy that we have her support, and hopefully down the road, you know, we can gather ideas on how to get her to help us more with this issue. And when she offered that, I had a funny thought in my head. I was going to tell her, dear Anne, can you get Scotland to speak to Trump? But anyways, that was just a joke, but just a serious, you know, appreciation and thank you to Anne for her offer and kindness.
Thank you both. And John, over to you now.
Thank you so much, Anne, for offering this generosity. You can ask your parliament, because the parliament is powerful at this very important time frame. Your parliament can push and also put pressure on the government to push the agendas of women. You can highlight our agendas there. You can ask us to be connected in any way that you think that we can deliver our message. Connect us to your colleagues and friends. We will be more than happy to deliver our message. England and Scottish government is a big part of NATO. We don't want NATO to withdraw in a hasty process. We want NATO to stay and help Afghanistan and Afghanistan soldiers. Ask them to not to be so hasty, stay a little bit more and give more support to Afghan soldiers so we can defend from our country.
Thank you very much, Naijan. Thank you all. We have slightly run over our program. However, just one more question I'm going to take from Zia Saib from BBC. If you can hear us, please unmute your mic and ask your questions. I'm afraid this is going to be our last question before the closing of the event. So I'm going to pass over to Zia Saib.
Thank you so much. If you can hear me, everybody can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Absolutely wonderful discussion. Unfortunately, I missed Shahrzad John's and also Aryana John's speeches, but this is much needed at this very crucial time. My question, I have two questions. First, both from Naijan and Aryana John. Do you think if in the coming US elections, Joe Biden wins the election, and obviously you're praying for it, possibly, that will change stuff for the Afghan women, and that would mean that the process will become a bit more, will go into the right direction? And the second question, I mean, we are in this difficult situation. The peace talks have started in a very hasty way. Nobody's probably happy from it, but it has supporters. War has been going on for so long. There are a lot of discussions in support of this peace talks as well. And I was in Doha. The Taliban have not changed their views in terms of women. They even didn't look into women, into the eyes of the women journalists. That was widely reflected. From your point of view, looking back, what wrong decisions were made in terms of women campaign in Afghanistan as a whole, that now you would say, if we had done that thing, if the women had done this thing, we would have been in a much better position in these discussions, and that could also put light into the situation now that looking back could help for future.
Thank you, Zia Saib. Over to you, Naijan.
Okay, thank you, Shahryar Saib, for the questions. I believe that even if Joe Biden doesn't win, and again, President Trump wins the election, the situation will be different. The policy of US towards Afghanistan will be different. Whatever we are experiencing right now is under the influence of election of United States because of the public view regarding the Afghanistan war, which is the longest war of United States in the history of United States. The other issue, if Democrats win the election, there will be a lot of change in the relationship of Afghanistan and United States. Right now, because I'm a member of parliament, I know that at least $4 billion of our national budget is covering by United States. And that's mostly because of the security situation that they have. The money goes to the security sector. And Democrats, in the history of Democrats, they wanted to end wars. And ending this war is something that, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you.
And ending wars has always been the policy of Democrats. So the situation will be different. What was the wrong decision of women in the last 2 decades? We had so many problems. We didn't have a complete, wonderful movement of women's rights. I think one of the biggest things that we had to have Shahryar Saib, and we are lacking it right now, is that we have no national movement of women's rights in Afghanistan. And we feel the lack of it. Right now we are hearing different voices from parliament, from the ministry, from civil society, but something that can represent the whole country, the women in the village, the women in the far villages of Afghanistan, is something that we are lacking, and we have to work on it. We have to have a national movement that represents everyone, every woman, every voice, and can be a credible movement.
Thank you very much. On that note,
I have a last question.
I'm afraid we have to leave it there, I'm afraid, because we are running slightly, 10 minutes over time. I must apologize to Dr. Boris, who worked relentlessly to bring, organize this event. And he has been working, honestly, even organizing a Zoom conference is not as easy as it sounds. He has been probably awake most of the night to get everyone together and do that. But we're supposed to have him in the beginning and have a short speech. But I did miss that. So I do apologize again from yourself, Dr. Boris. I'm going to pass it over on to yourself to, maybe close this event with your talk to our guest speakers and to audience who are listening. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Zainab John. That was a pleasure to have such wonderful panelists here with me, and the team work with me very closely to be able to run the Zoom meeting. Just I want to see a couple of thank you, because we already are over the time. I want to thank you, the panelists, Shahzad Akbar, the chairman of Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission. I know Shahzad left a message for me because she had a little baby. She left a bit earlier. She apologized for that. I want to thank you for the Anne from the Glasgow City Council, and formerly a MP from the Scottish Government. Thank you for joining us, and that was very wonderful time to have you here. And I want to thank you to the Aryana John Sayeed. Aryana John Sayeed is a wonderful artist, and come to us and join to us. That was a wonderful time to have her in the board. And at the same time, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to my mutual friend, Jawad Karimi and Hasib John, to be very helpful to bring Aryana with me here. And I want to say a huge thank you to Nahid Farid, the youngest and active MP from Afghanistan. He joined us, and at the same time, I want to take the opportunity to say thank you to my friend, Dr. Muradian, to help me to find Nahid Jan. And at the same time, I want to mention the analysis dot, my friend and the Oxford MP just sent me a message. She is the shadow Minister of the British government. She had a very urgent meeting. I was waiting if she come back, if she finished earlier. Unfortunately, in that time, we missed her. She apologized for every panelist. And I also say thank you for the Alison from the Deputy Country Director of UN Women join us very last minute, and she had a very big part of the meeting. And at the same time, I want to give the time to thank you, my wife, my daughter Nadia, and Fatima. They helped me a lot to organize that meeting, and also a special thank to the team, Zainab John, the host, and also I want to say thank you, the co-hosts. You're not seeing them here, which is Abdul Bastani, Basit Aryan Far, and Zahir Aryai. And I also thank you all other friends around the world to give me good advice to run that meeting. And also thank you for the partner media, which is Hasti TV, Nauruz Radio in Herat, Khabaran TV, and Kabul and Kunduz. There is Baran and Shabnam TV and Takhar and Faizabad. And I also say thank you the very generous offer of Aryana John, Nahid John, and Afghan Institute of Strategic. At the same time, they are sharing the program. We have thousands people looking through the social media, the program. Thank you so much for every single one be participating in the program. I think we've been in the right time to finish the program. Thank you again. See you next time. Have a good time. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Dr. Said Boris. Thank you very much once again. And I must say our very heartfelt gratitude to all the audience who are listening to us right now live. And on the message of let's not lose on peace, as Naijan said earlier, every single one of you, women and men, can play a fundamental, regardless of how much, but a very fundamental part in bringing a long-lasting peace in Afghanistan. So please do support each other. The wide world peace starts with social peace. Let's be peaceful amongst ourselves and then elaborate on that. Thank you to all of you in here. As Boris said, I'm echoing every message that he just said earlier. Lovely and a pleasure having you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.